We're in the series Be Freer, One Step at a Time. And this is a change cycle of 10 steps. We've come to the new birth being clear at 9, and this is now celebrating what has happened in the change that has been wrought within us through following through these steps. This 10th step is to celebrate and round off this particular now settled do pattern by noting insights about outcomes that can impact future life and living cycles. And so we'll pause and listen and accept. And when we look back, and we're doing that particularly this time, we will see that positive change has happened for us. Therefore, we've been transformed. This left-hand image reminds of the emotional realities when a decision was made to begin a new cycle of change by introducing a new pattern of doing into our life and living. This almost invariably means leaving behind something we have become comfortable with. This movement from comfort zone will have a certain sense of fear of the unknowing ahead. However, the choice to change would not have been made unless the non-detailed promise of the benefits of stepping into the new pattern outweighed and/or counterbalanced this sense of fear. The right-hand image depicts something of how it is now, when the cycle of change is completed. There is a settling, a sense of being safely on the path, and an integration into life and living that is now at semi-conscious level. A personal story of a sense of settling at the end of a completed change cycle. I have known for all of my adult life that I am exceedingly independent. At mid-span of my life to date, through dream wisdom, I became aware that I never ever even thought of asking for help up to this point of time in my life. I then made the decision to embrace a new cycle of change, henceforth to integrate asking and receiving help into my life and living. At first, to ask for help required very conscious effort, much cogitating, and quite deep should I have doubts about having made the right decision in the aftermath of asking for help. This doubting caused a cringing in me because I was at the beginning of a steep learning curve of how to integrate asking, receiving help appropriately into my life and living. Since I had lived into my previous benchmark of going it alone for many years, I had no boundaries for when it was appropriate to ask for help or to receive help from another. This do pattern is now integrated into my life and living to the extent that I listen to my intuition telling me I need help, and as well, I have a new framework. Everyone who offers help will be heard, and such help integrated into my life and living appropriately. The left-hand image here represents how this now not new pattern can stand firm in implementation into life and living and has functional and emotional boundaries that sustain its safe reality. The right-hand image represents how, at a whole-of-life lens level, this particular completed cycle is part of many cycles of change, which are all drawing inevitably to our centre of wholeness. In retrospect, I invite you to name and savour your sense of settling. Such pausing makes this a possibility. No pausing to do this means a positive emotional experience opportunity has been missed. Self-observer reflection can gift you with learnings to carry forward. Naming these provides a strategy that can put struggles of future cycles of change more in perspective. One important countercultural learning is that discomfort equals invitation to begin a change cycle. Knowing this gives a lens on such experience deeper than the more likely and more surface cultural stances of moaning and rejection. A second learning is that pullback energy and triggering are a normal part of the process of change. The shaded parts of this image represents a sense of struggle in both the wider experience of life and in a cycle of change, as represented by the circular drop of dew at the tip of the blade of grass. Viewing the image as a whole, and noting the predominance of green, metaphorically depicting hope, is one way to comprehend somewhat that pullback energy and triggering up of former traumatic experiences are an intrinsic but not major part of a cycle of change. A third learning is that pausing surfaces emotional wisdom. We don't take notice of this deeper than intellectual intelligence if we don't pause and allow it to be received. Resonance with the help story. Several emotionally plus surfacings have been experienced by me as I have integrated asking for help and receiving help graciously into my life and living. For a start, many of my former photo finish to be ready experiences requiring a very late night or a whole night up have been deleted from my overall timetable. A definite emotional outcome of less stress the night before a presentation. A year or so ago, when I had 2 breaks in my left arm and couldn't drive, 17 offers to provide transport for me were made. I was so touched at this range of people in my life showing their care for me by offering to help. Needless to say, this was a much better solution to my problem than if I had not embraced this invitation to change through dream wisdom. If I hadn't, I would still be in my very comfortable and complacent zone of being fiercely independent and, as a consequence, experiencing much more limiting emotional outcomes. A residue of this recent change cycle completed experience is that there is a warmth about being loved that is still available to me in retrospective experience by invoking sensory memory. I invite you to invoke your observer self to savour new birthings. Doing this enhances depth of settling and clarity of outcomes. It is really worthwhile to name new horizons. They exist now, and they didn't before this now not new pattern settled. You will notice if you pause that there is an expansion of experience. There is satisfaction in life existing now that didn't before. Another expanded horizon is that you can now trust your intuitive knowings. And you can trust them more than you did before. For there are going with intuition without knowing a definite outcome experiences in a completed cycle of change. These 2 expanded horizons will enable you to face new challenges courageously. For you have experienced the benefits of having faced the challenges in this cycle successfully. Regarding the former strong pullback energy of the former pattern, you will be able now to pick triggers earlier. For this former pattern no longer has autopilot power. It is really worth giving yourself time now and again to savour these last named giftings of this completed change cycle. 1. Expanded awareness of what is possible. 2. Listening to and honouring your intuition. 3. Living courageously into challenges more. 4. Picking up triggers for older patterns earlier. Noel Davis has a poem called "So Let's Slip On Our Dancing Shoes." Metaphorically, we put on our Dancing with Life shoes when we listen to and embrace inner invitations. Pausing regularly and often is necessary for this to be a possibility. And so we paused and listened and accepted. And at this stage 10 of celebrating, we are naming the positive changes that have happened in our inner being. After having savoured the new birthings of a now not new do pattern, and moving on by slipping on our Dancing with Life shoes, we are enabled to step more courageously than before into other growth and healing cycles. The completion of a Dancing with Life cycle has brought new giftings and, as well, concludes a healing cycle that has brought us more fully to who we are invited to become. I'm giving another summary of this process of change. Noel Davis, in At the Edge, poetically describes the cycle of change in 3 stages. His first stage encompasses steps 1 to 3 of this cycle of change. It's scary and breathtaking being at the edge of our lives, just us, the edge, and the vast unknown, and yet echoing down the valley of our hearts the constant call to trust. His second phase, steps 4 to 10, in the second verse. That edge becomes a settled place without an echo, a niche to line and realign till we feel satisfied, lulled into complacency by the now safe edge. And in the final 2 lines, letting us know that it won't be long, if it is not already happening, that our satisfaction will be undermined yet again by a new awareness calling us yet again beyond the edge of who we are and have become.